Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Anaconda. And this movie came out in 1997. And before I get into the review, sorry, I said my next video, well, this video was going to be for Lee Cronin's The Mummy, but unfortunately, that wasn't going to happen because the only place I could have watched it at the time of me recording this was on Amazon Prime, and I had to rent it for at least $20. And I decided I'll just watch something else, and I chose Anaconda, the original. So I will get to Lee Cronin's The Mummy at some point, but for now, I'm going to talk about Anaconda 1997. So sorry about that. And speaking of Anaconda, I have never seen this movie before. I have seen the 2025 remake. I kind of found that movie to be somewhat fun and entertaining, and it does what it wants to, and it does have fun with it, and kind of knows what it is, and has some level of self awareness to it, and it's enjoyable, it's fun, and actually somewhat memorable for me personally. And while this movie did have some parts of it that were kind of fun, like the opening scene, I really enjoyed. It was cheesy and goofy and didn't really make a lot of sense, but it was entertaining at the very least, and I do like the 90s feel that this movie has, and it definitely does feel like a movie that came out in that time period. And ultimately, what this movie is basically just a mix between Jaws with a couple of other things. Like it's primarily just Jaws, but with a snake. But based on how things were presented, with so much of this movie taking place on a boat, I was kind of thinking of Apocalypse Now, just because most of that movie takes place on a boat, and I don't know, it's just thinking of that a little bit. And also, with the POV shots of the snake, sure, that's also in Jaws, but the way it was presented at times, and it wasn't always a snake. I was just thinking of the Evil Dead trilogy. That stuff is fun, and I enjoy things like that. But unfortunately, where this movie kind of falls apart is that it's kind of just a worse version of all of those things that I just mentioned. Like, it's not really scary for me. I'm not really into any of the characters, and it's definitely reminiscent of a lot of things, but it just doesn't do anything that well or memorable to where I'm like, yeah, I would want to come back to this movie again because I want to revisit certain scenes. Like the action scenes are kind of entertaining for what they are, but unfortunately, they're not the main thing in this movie. They're in the film for sure, and the third act has plenty of action, but most of the movie has no action. That's a big letdown for me, is that there's a huge, huge chunk of this movie that's really boring. And one thing that I wish that this movie didn't do was show the snake so early, like 15 minutes into the movie, and we already see the snake. And I just felt like it could have waited a lot longer before that happened. But one thing that I'll give this movie credit for is how much they tried to use a practical snake instead of a CG snake. Like they do try to utilize practical effects in this movie, and it does look good, like especially for the time. And this movie had a $45 million budget, which was, I believe, big for the time. I also wasn't really in love with any of the performances. Like Jennifer Lopez was fine. I didn't really find anything about her performance that really was all that memorable or blew me away or anything. John Voight, if I pronounced that correctly, he was fine in it. Didn't really offer much. Ice Cube, he was my least favorite part of the movie. There's no scene in this movie where I can look at him and say, that's a character. All I could see was Ice Cube. And that was kind of distracting for me. And Owen Wilson, he's in this movie, and, he can be really great, but unfortunately in this movie, he's not really given anything. This movie also has some dumb horror movie cliches that I didn't really care for, and it just felt like wasted time. And this movie is 90 minutes long, and it just feels like there's a lot of filler in this movie. Like they just don't really know what to do with this concept. And it's just a lot of nothing happening for a long time. And it was the 90s, and sure, you could say they were just trying to have fun with whatever crazy concepts that they could come up with. And I think I've mentioned on my channel before that in the 90s, it was original movies that made the most money, whereas movies that didn't do too well were just sequels and remakes. And they really scraped the bottom of the barrel for original ideas because even the ones that are, I guess, original kind of just feel like they're just something that's already existed before, but just taking a different direction and having a different approach to it. Like The Mummy from 1999 with Brendan Fraser. Each Mummy movie is kind of its own thing in a way. Like the original, from what I can remember, is like a monster movie. That's a classic. I haven't seen the 50s one, but the 99 Brendan Fraser mummy, and even all the Brendan Fraser mummies, are basically The Mummy meets Indiana Jones. And that's pretty much what they're going for. And, for what they are, they were successful films at doing that. And the Tom Cruise Mummy movie was basically The Mummy meets the MCU, trying to create a cinematic universe with their dark universe. And now we have this new Mummy movie, which I have yet to see. But from what I hear, it's basically The Mummy meets Evil Dead. But anyways, I'm kind of rambling on a bit. That was just what this time period had to offer. And to some extent, I do have a soft spot for movies from that era. I just am kind of somewhat nostalgic for that time period in terms of a look and tone. And that's most of what I get out of this movie. But unfortunately, it's just not enough to carry me through the entire experience. And I didn't care for any of the characters. They were all just flat and uninteresting to me. I didn't like the music. It was straight up ruining scenes for me. And I just wish that they were more restrictive with it. Like, could we have just a few scenes where we don't have music? Because it honestly felt like every scene in this movie had music. And it was just so obvious, like, you don't need it in every scene. There were lots of stock sound effects in this movie, and there were parts where they added sound effects to the snake, like roaring or something. I have no idea what was going on there. That was kind of goofy to me. And that's about all I have to say about Anaconda from 1997. It was kind of boring. It didn't really leave an impact on me. I enjoyed moments in it. But overall, if I'm going to watch an Anaconda movie, I think I'd much rather watch the 2025 film. And I do feel as though I might have rated this a bit higher had I seen this movie before, like when I was younger and I saw it in a group where we could just like laugh and enjoy it for what it was. And had I watched it then, like in the early 2000s, maybe I would have liked it a lot more. But as is, it's just not for me, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I'm just on the side of not really enjoying it. So skip this movie would be my recommendation. I just didn't get anything out of it. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Anaconda, the original, a 4 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below your thought of Anaconda from 1997, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Made from 2001, directed by Jon Favreau, and I believe that was his first feature film. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.